Hi guys, how's it going? This is Ryuji. I have a presentation today in the class of Anthropology of Religion. This is the first time to present in a huge class for me, so I'm kind of nervous, but I'll do my best. By the way, this is my favorite snack, sunflower seed. Recently I have. This is very good. Anyway, before we begin, make sure to subscribe our channel. Let's see how we did presentation in the class. Let's go.
We're Karma, group 6, and we studied religiously associated businesses and the impacts on the UF community. I'm Chloe.
I'm Alex. I'm Aiden.
I'm Marley.
I'm Aria.
I'm Ryuji.
So, basically our research question that we wound up landing on is, does religious association change how a food service business is run and experienced by the UF community? And the 3 businesses that we focused on were Krishna Lunch, Bite of Power, and Pascal's Coffee. And a little bit, one thing that we really noticed in our research, like with a common theme, was one of the first things we noticed was a bias against Christian associated businesses, even from people who identified themselves as Christian and significantly religious. A reason that we think this is due to delving in deeper in our interviews is because of kind of even Christians not being super comfortable with a blanket umbrella Christianity and feeling like maybe they had a more specific interpretation of the Bible and they didn't really know if those businesses matched their interpretation of it. So they were a little bit skeptical to support a business that they weren't exactly sure which version of Christianity that they were supporting. Another finding we had was that most students, a lot of students didn't know that Bite of Power was a religiously associated business. However, we think that could be due to it being extremely new and not as established as the other 2 businesses. And most students we found had an incomplete understanding of the Krishna values as a religion and just as a system of values in itself. But however, we found that they were still more likely to support the Krishna business than a Christian business, even though they felt like they might understand all the values of a Christian business or were more familiar with them. And one thing that my group talked about in conversations is, and kind of getting into our interviews and really analyzing them, is we think some of this might come from such a heavy portrayal of Christianity in the westernized media. And however, Krishna not having as much of a prominent place in the media and just not being as discussed beyond the UF campus. Obviously, they do have a group here, which makes us a lot more aware of them, but I don't think most of our participants had any familiarity with them before UF's campus.
Something else that we wanted to look at was the difference in physical environments and how that affected how students experience them. In a couple of my interviews, the idea of open versus closed physical spaces kept coming up, which we found to be very interesting. Regardless of what the religious affiliation was, people were more wary of entering a closed space because they felt that they had to kind of conform to that, those religious principles instead of kind of keeping themselves. It was hard to separate themselves from the religion. And then in an open space like Plaza of the Americas where Krishna sells lunch, people didn't have an issue at all just because they thought that they could walk away, they could put distance. And so that just kind of ties back into open versus closed space. It also works to create the atmosphere of the business, like Pascal's, for example, and just other Christian spaces. People said that no matter how the people kind of acted, they always felt that if they weren't Christian, they were being judged for how they act, how they look, and they didn't really appreciate that. And then with also in a closed space, the presence of religious paraphernalia, at Pascal's, a Wi-Fi password is a verse from the Bible. There's a lot of theological texts and other paraphernalia present, which makes people very aware that it's a religious space, and so it feels kind of like religion is being pushed on you, even if it's not, just because it's like surrounding you and it's what people are talking about. There is some at Krishna. There's like the music, and then there is the Krishna member who's selling the books about the religion. But once again, because they aren't having to enter a space where they feel like confined, it doesn't have as big of an impact. And then something that we also thought, with people not really knowing that Bite of Power was religious or had religious affiliation, is that there was no like religious symbolism anywhere. One of my interviewees went to Bite of Power at like the beginning of Ramadan, and so they expected that they would have seen something about that, but there was nothing. Like if I hadn't told them that it was religiously affiliated, they would not have known. So I think that just also plays into like the effect of the physical atmosphere on how a business is experienced.
I also just want to add, with open versus closed spaces, something I kind of noticed throughout my interviews with people being uncomfortable going into the closed spaces, as they felt that they kind of lost a little bit of their personal and religious autonomy. So like the ability to experience and then choose if they wanted to support it. They didn't really like the idea of feeling like they would maybe be forced into it or asked about it, instead of just being able to kind of observe and make their own.
And another like final one, Krishna lunch is also served at the Krishna house, like right behind where that Target used to be. And even where they serve the food is like on an outdoor patio of the house, so it's not inside the house. So even in that aspect, like it's still open and like unconfined.
Yeah, so mainly why people go, it's not because of the religious affiliation. As we said with Krishna, most of the people that go to Krishna aren't, following the faith. They're going mainly for a social experience, and a lot of the interviews we had, mainly the people going to Krishna, they were going with somebody else. That was like a common thread throughout most of our interviews. If they weren't going with one person, they were going with multiple people. The next thing was the convenience, especially Krishna. It's central to UF campus. If you have an hour break in your classes and you have choices of where to eat, Krishna's in the center and you can go there pretty quickly and get food. Even the cafes across the street from the university, across the University Ave, they're central to like students. So if you're coming or going from campus, that's normally why people are going. And then the third thing was the quality and the food and the drink. Everybody basically said that they liked the Krishna food, except for one of my interviewees. He said that he hated the Krishna food and that he only went because his friends invited him. And then people liked the coffee at the cafes and such.
And then the fourth factor for that was that religion was not actually the driving factor that we expected it to be. We actually found that a lot of people were mainly just curious, as with UF, you don't have too many options that aren't fast food directly pushed in your face of Chick-fil-A or some food pass. And so a lot of people that I interviewed said that the vegetarian, vegan option spoke to them because there's really not a lot of that on campus. As Alex had said, a lot of invitation, friends saying, let's just go grab Krishna, it's right in the middle of the plaza. And it's also just affordable. $6 for a plate for many students is the most that they can spend on something to have the quality of food. It really boosted that up. And it was also interesting, a small portion of people that actually said the Christian space turned them away and actually did not get them curious about it. But the Krishnas, seeing that it was Hindu, they actually did want to go look into it, and that actually was a small driving factor, although it was not nearly as big as we expected it to be.
Yeah. Okay. So we also wanted to go into like not only how the UF community perceived these businesses, but also like the driving factors behind those people who were managing or working at these businesses, and how they felt that religion impacted the business model. And with Krishna, I would say they're very specific about food practice being a part of their religion. And through my interview with one of the Krishnas, I learned that all the Krishnas that live in the house are a part of the food preparation or serving in some capacity. And it is like a tenet of their religion to provide pure food for the community. From what I learned, I discerned very much so that like the profit that they get from serving this food is really not to like promote the religious agenda in any way. It is more so to just support the continuation of the food service, and as it is more of a tenet of their religion than a way for them to spread the religion. And yeah, so basically, like, this kind of goes back to the values of Krishna, which are like non-violence, even down to like vegetarianism and like the treatment of animals and plants, and they like also like a belief in just like love and compassionate practices. And so like, and they believe that everything they like eat should follow these out well. So we're kind of seeing like from the text, like a theme that we could kind of pull in is that like sense of food purity, leading to like bodily purity was like a really big thing for the Krishnas. And one thing that I asked the interviewee that I had that was a Krishna was like, do you think that people understand what your mission with this? And she said to me, she said, I don't think like that most people necessarily understand like why we are providing this service, but we still hope that they are like positively benefited either through enjoying the food or like feeling internally or externally good, even if like they don't understand our mission.
Just to note the last bullet on here, when I was doing some readings more about Krishna, I found it interesting that their eating habits are subjected to laws of karma. So instead of something like in Christianity, you're reporting to God, it's essentially if you do the good things will come back to you. So it's also kind of tying into having that personal autonomy of like, I'm in control of myself, but I'm still like spiritual and practicing what I believe in.
Okay, and I had the opportunity to interview one of the baristas at Pascal's Coffee House, and she was very serious in her faith, in her Christian faith, which was different from some of my other interviewees, and she really was able to give me information on how Pascal's kind of contributes to creating like that atmosphere of Christianity within their employees. The application to be a barista will ask like whoever is filling it out, like how strong in their faith they are with Christianity, which is very interesting because usually you don't see religion being asked in like a job application. And then employees will also have like a once a month book club where they'll read theological texts or analyze text from a theological lens, which the barista, she was very happy about. She said that it kind of created a sense of accountability between her and her coworkers in like being serious with their faith and continuing to practice and creating that personal relationship with God. And that comes from like a top-down approach, because that's not just the baristas that decided that was also like the managerial staff and whatnot. And then in Pascal's, like just to go back a little bit, they have an upper level that will have a lot of religious texts that are just kind of decorations within their business, which was like an intentional move on the people who created the coffee house's part to kind of show that like it is a place for Christian students to come to socialize, as it was like created by the Christian Study Center. That was like one of their main goals, so they won't push you out if you're not Christian, but like that is the population that they're trying to attract. And then like just on their website, each employee will have like a photo, and there's kind of like a religiously associated quote or something along those lines like underneath it that they chose. So it just once again ties in how like this business used Christianity to like create its niche.
And I interviewed the managers of Vital Power. They just started the business last year, and then the reason to choose this place for the business is UF is huge, and they thought they can tell the real halal to the many nationalities. And their restaurant mission is to make sure everyone understands the real halal is. And while they were in New York, they were feeling disappointed. Some people sell the fake halal on the street. And the managers have an unwavering passion to spread the real halal to everyone. They only use ingredients which is processed based on their Muslim principles. Muslims and non-Muslims work here and learn the real halal, and they try to spread the real halal to the customers. They do not make a huge profit by the factor of religion, but they are going to spread the present of themselves by using social media and making the restaurant more informative. And religion doesn't affect too much on the factor to attract the customers so far, but it has a huge impact how they run a restaurant.
That's a lot.
Okay, very good. And I think one of the things that I also think is very fascinating and we talked about is how space matters and outdoor versus indoor space. Yeah, I think that's a fascinating.
So the class is finished. I think we did well, pretty well. Professor liked our presentation. She doesn't have a lot of questions for us. Yeah. And now I only have 2 final exams and 2 other essays. If it's finished, it's over. Summer break! I'm so excited! This is it for today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe our channel, hit a like on this video. See you next time. Bye.